Hey, it's Bryan.
It's Barry.
And it's Nate with a weird voice.
Welcome to the Collecti-Bros podcast. Thank you for joining us today, guys. We're going to have an episode of our mainline series, Is It Worth It? Well, let me break that down for you really quick. We pick a game, we go over 5 key components: the graphics, the gameplay, the sound/music.
Don't sound so excited.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to remember the 5 because you
just love this game.
Yeah. Graphics, gameplay, sound. What's the other one?
I've only done 100
I know.
these.
Graphics, gameplay, sound,
Come on. Hand motions.
Story.
Just
Yeah,
charades.
story. Dear Lord, that's the problem. I didn't put that first. We always do story first.
And
And then, of course, the price and collectability that asks the overall question, is it worth it? If you guys like what you hear, please check us out on social media. We are at Collecti-Bros Pod on all socials. You can find a link to our Discord in the show notes. So, Mega Man X3. Let's talk about this one. It was released first for the Super Famicom in Japan. It was released as Rockman X3, released on December 1st, 1995. The North American Super Nintendo release was January 4th, 96, and then the PAL regions got it in May 15, 96. The interesting part about this is the PlayStation and Saturn versions. It is not available in North America on any other platform other than the Super Nintendo. The PlayStation and Saturn versions released Japan April 26, 96, and then the PAL regions March 97, so significantly later, interestingly. There was a later port for Windows. I don't know what Windows operating system was at the time, probably Windows 95, close to getting Windows 98. Japan version released March 28, 97, North America October 5th, 1998, so literally a 2-year gap between the Super Nintendo version and the Windows version. And then in Europe, 1998. The interesting fact is the versions are actually different. There are a difference between the PlayStation and the Saturn version. Obviously, being disc-based, you're going to have disc-based music, but you also get animated cutscenes. So the Windows version is the 32-bit version of the game. There was also a mobile phone port in Japan, but, whatever. July 1st, 2010, if you're a completionist and a purist. Interesting enough, there also was a 3DO version in the works, but they just straight up said, hey, we're not going to continue developing this because of the horrible disaster Hindenburg bomb of the 3DO. And they said, yeah, let's just not waste the money, which is probably smart. The Super Nintendo version of the game was developed by, oh god, my mortal enemy, trying to pronounce Japanese.
You can just do like a Bruce Campbell, like...
Ku. It's not Coochie. Kachi.
Just spell it out, Bryan.
It's a shy guy.
Just sound it out in your brain.
Yeah.
You can't spell.
That's true. That's true. You can barley spell.
No, what was the one yesterday? That was cracking me up because I was like, it's not my fault.
Barley.
Yeah.
And Negro.
Look. All right. Okay. They developed this for the Super Nintendo. And they're also the team that worked on the Game Boy Mega Man games of the past, except for Mega Man 2. They're super unique, different take on Mega Man, so it's kind of cool they have a connection to the series. They also did the Knights of the Round port for Super Nintendo, which pretty solid port for an arcade game. The CD version was focused to develop by Capcom. They wanted to put their primary attention on the new developing consoles, so it makes kind of sense how they would ship it off to a third party to work on the inferior version, if you will. Maybe not. Maybe we'll get into that later. It was published by Capcom in Japan, North America. Laguna Video Games on PAL, who I have never heard of and I can't find a lot about. The CD versions for the PAL region was published by Virgin Games, which everyone knows Virgin. Interesting fact about the producer for this game, Takuro Fujiwara, who probably has the best nickname in the game, Professor F instead of Professor X. You'll know him from developing Mega Man 2, which honestly is my favorite of the series. If you're Resident Evil fans, you're familiar. He's the one that actually told Capcom that they should remake Sweet Home, his original game, and that's what later turned into Resident Evil. He did a lot of the Disney games from the classic Super Nintendo era, DuckTales. He did Little Nemo. If you know you're a Nintendo collector, you know about that game. Mega Man X, the first game, is actually his baby, his project, so that's why he's obviously still working on it. all the way up to the third release for the Super Nintendo. PlayStation fans will know him from Toomba and Ghosts and Goblins. Honestly, this guy's like super pivotal in Capcom. A lot of their 16-bit era, he's very pivotal in, and even some classics in the 8-bit era. So with the introduction of the game out of the way, let's just jump into the story. You know it's going to be deep if it's a game I picked. Alright, the story of Mega Man X3, and mind you, this is a continuation of the series. It is a direct sequel to, could you guess that from the numbering system? But it is set in the year 21XX, to be very specific. Opens up with a backstory. Dr. Doppler is basically creating a cure for the Maverick virus. You learn about the Mavericks in the first Mega Man X game. They're basically robots who do some criminal activity, and X has to track them down and hunt them like a bounty hunter. But he basically creates his own town to hold the Mavericks called Doppler Town. Turns out he's evil, and he ends up attacking the Maverick Hunter headquarters where Zero and X are chilling, and you have to protect it. It's pretty much the intro of the game. It's the first level. You've got to stop 8 Mavericks in typical Mega Man fashion before you can go after the main boss, Dr. Doppler. But spoiler, and sorry if you guys didn't see this one coming, but Sigma's behind the scenes running it. You basically learn that his original forms, he's a computer virus, and that's why he's able to keep coming back. He's kind of like Ultron if you guys are Marvel comic fans. So you figure that out. Again, the meat and potatoes of this game is the story. But Zero ends up stopping him by developing a virus for his sword, cutting him in half. He's basically like, yeah, this should stop it finally, but there is also, 8 Mega Man X games, so I'll let you guys do the math and figure that one out. Truthfully, there's not a lot of meat and bones on this story for this game. I don't think people really play the Mega Man X games for the story. I think the first game does a really good job of kind of setting up the world and setting up the changes for, the Super Nintendo era of Mega Man versus the NES era. Does a lot of world building. This one of the biggest knocks on this game is that it doesn't really change a lot of things. And I think it's super adamant as soon as you play the game and you start it up, the story does nothing. It kind of has no conclusion. It's kind of just a big nothing burger.
It has a conclusion.
Well, yeah, it has a conclusion.
It has 2 endings.
I'm talking about just for like the series in general. Like the first game built the world. The second game kind of sets up some things with like the relations between the robots and the Mavericks and humans. The third game just kind of exists story-wise.
I will say, I'll give it credit. The opening cinematic is like surprisingly lengthy. Like we were sitting there for a good 8 minutes watching it. So right before it goes into demo mode, before you like start your game. But yeah, I mean, whatever. It's kind of my notes on the story is like, all right, X is like a cool world. Zero's cool. Like I think Bryan kind of hit on the head though. No one really plays Mega Man for like this profound story.
Yeah, I don't want to be like too critical on it, but for me, it is a step back in the series just because it doesn't add a lot. It doesn't add a lot to the lore. The biggest reveal is that Sigma is a virus, but I mean, if you can kind of read between the lines, you kind of figured that out in the first place. But Barry did touch on it. There are multiple endings you can achieve based on some of the actions you take. So
it's a cool storytelling device for the time. Like,
sure.
There's like alternate, almost like branching paths, even though you're kind of picking your own path at being a Mega Man game. But
well, I think it's really interesting that the first game that Zero is playable.
Mm-hmm. Right.
He directly affects the ending of the game. So, because I don't, did you touch on it at all?
Not yet. Go ahead.
So like this is the first, I think X and X2, was X the first one he was in? I don't know too much about Mega Man lore. Yeah. So.
Oh, they're coming for us if we can fuck this up.
Okay. So I think he's the first appears in X, and then X3 he's playable but to a limited capacity, and then X4 he's fully playable, correct?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, because X4 is the one where they made it like Mega Man's gun-based and X is like sword-based.
So
how they should have fucking done in this one, but we'll get there.
I think it was really cool that like he is at a limited capacity, and the fact that you can play him, but if he dies, you don't get him the rest of the game. He's like permadeath is cool.
Just crazy,
yeah. And then not only that, but like if he survives to the end but takes damage at all, that changes the ending.
Mm-hmm.
So, because I think one ending, it says that Zero will take Doppler's antivirus software and he puts it in his saber.
Yeah.
And then he saves X, he makes Sigma explode and he destroys the lab. But if he's injured, Doppler instead uses his own body and sacrifices himself.
Yeah, so
which is interesting.
It's like not the true ending. I would believe would be like the 0-1, right? Because like it's way.
I mean, that's the coolest one.
Yeah,
it's very melancholy when you're watching the end credits without Zero and you're just running by yourself and you're like, all right, I guess Zero's dead or something. Yeah,
there are some interesting like changes to I guess story with Zero being involved. For example, if you want to use Zero's sword, I know there's a technical name for it. I'm sorry, come at me, Mega Man fans. I don't have it on the tip of my tongue.
I don't know if it has an actual name, but I know they refer to it as like a saber.
Yeah, but if you there's a certain
the Z saber sword. That's what it is.
Okay, thank you. So they don't come at us. There's a certain boss you can like attempt to fight with Zero, and we'll get into the gameplay. But you can't fight bosses with Zero. But for this one time, you're supposed to try to enter the room with Zero for him to be able to use this sword. And like halfway through the fight, Zero slashes him in half, and he's like, "I can't continue, Mega Man. Take my sword." So there are ways you can change the story a little bit and the ending particularly.
Yeah, there's like different boss fights you can have by doing stuff in order or like not using the right weapon on certain bosses. You have to like refight them later and stuff, which is like, it's pretty forward thinking for the time, especially in the console life game. Like there was potential with storytelling devices in this game. I just think the actual story is a little lacking, but like I will give them a ton of creative points for how you go about unfolding the story.
Yeah, I think that's fair. It doesn't add anything new to the lore. It doesn't change any characters. And there's a really weird thing on the ending where it's like the text box, which, by the way, if you can read these texts, because the colors on it, if it's not orange, it's almost impossible for me to read. When it was green and blue, I would have had to squint my eyes because there's like a white line that's trying to do like a reflection effect on the letters and the numbers. I struggled reading them severely, and I was playing on HD TV. But it says a line where it's like, in order to achieve world peace, Mega Man's going to have to defeat Zero. Or it says, I think it says kill, actually. I don't remember if it says murder or kill. It says something like that, where he has to defeat him. Which, yeah, they're like destined to fight just based on like the politics of like, you know, dealing with the robots and how humans coexist with them. But I don't think they have to kill him. It was kind of just a weird out of nowhere for a Super Nintendo game to be like, wait, what? Like, he's got to kill him.
It might have been a translation thing too. Like,
that's what most people on the internet are chalking it up to, which, you know, very common back then for to have mistranslations because they still end up working together in Mega Man 4. So again, I haven't gone super far past the Super Nintendo era of Mega Man. So I mean, maybe it does happen. I don't know. Let us know on social media or in the comics or whatever. But yeah, it was kind of jarring. Like they're sitting there like, oh, we finally did it. Oh yeah, by the way, I'm about to kill this dude to achieve world peace. But that's pretty much it for the story. I'd say A for effort, but doesn't really add anything.
I've got one special shout out. Is made me like put the controller down and crack up. Like when you fight Vile and beat Vile when he's dying, like the text scrolls for people's speed of how fast they're talking, and he's like, and it's a text like and the text like trails off. I started cracking up. I was trying to be dramatic, but they didn't have like voice acting, you know, so it made me literally laugh, and it was pretty great storytelling in my opinion.
Yeah, when he was like, I will hunt you down, and the text message is like, it's like till day Y O U die, but it's like doing the sound with it. It was pretty funny.
I mean, I will say, for all this game doesn't have a story. I mean, it does. I think both endings offer a good conclusion on both ends, where you've got the one that Zero destroys everything and it's like the coolest because he is Zero, but then the one where what's his name, Doppler uses his own body and sacrifices himself. It's one of those like redemption arcs where like he quote unquote woke up and realized what he did.
Yeah.
And so in that story branch, it's like, okay, I mean, you can call this a stretch if you want. It is a Mega Man game, but like, it's interesting that like it allows for the villain to have a redemption of being like, oh, I really messed up and this is what I can do to like end this.
Yeah.
You know, for a greater good, instead of just being like, congrats, you beat the villain.
Very true. Like
a lot of games have at the end, where it's like, cool, especially you killed the bad guy. So I find it interesting that this has both options, and obviously, like, we all want Zero to blow stuff up. Yeah. But it is cool to see, like, you know, I think a redemption arc is very common, but I don't feel like it's super common in side-scroller shooters.
Especially in that era.
Yeah. So that's something that, like, they didn't really have to do at all. You could have just been like, yeah, we could have put the antivirus in some robot body and been like, we killed the body and now the virus has nowhere to go. It's cool.
It's funny
We
too
did it.
because he's chasing Mega Man to try to get inside Mega Man. And that's why he sacrifices himself.
I do want to say his name isn't Mega Man, it's X.
X,
they
excuse
call him
me.
Mega Man a couple
But
times.
why
too.
is he X and not Mega Man? I don't know anything about Mega Man.
I'm gonna leave this one for the fandom so don't come at me.
They call him Mega Man a couple times in the
Yeah.
game, but like, they call him X too. Like,
There's a reason. We have some fans that can let us know for sure. We'll have to Google it maybe.
I'm about to Google it.
Yeah,
Because
don't wanna
I
get this
know
wrong,
Battle
goddammit.
Network. All right,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I know 8-bit, and I know like they're fun. That's all.
Yeah, I'll say this. I'm definitely more in line with the NES era 8-bit Mega Man stuff than I am the X. I appreciate X for what it is, and especially for like what it brought to a new console. And there's a whole generation of like Mega Man X fans out there. X1's a great game.
So apparently Mega Man and X are not the same. They're two completely different robots.
Interesting. And that's another thing. Is this in the same universe? Because Dr. Light's in this game.
Right?
The character's name in the Mega Man X series is only called X. He doesn't have Mega Man as part of his name. Like, Zero isn't called Mega Man Zero, even though that's a game he stars in.
Right.
Of course.
But he's not. X is a future version of Mega Man. Someone said, "Don't quote me on that."
we just did. Yeah, I'm not the biggest.
I'd be interested
yeah.
to know, but like from what I can tell, they're at least not the same.
We don't have to keep this
His
in
name
the
is canonically just X.
Yeah.
We don't have to keep this in the episode, but like might be a fun episode idea. Someday like pick a game we don't know anything about and just dive into the lore and try to figure it out on the go.
This would be a good
Kind of
one.
fun.
I
Yeah.
don't know anything about Mega
Yeah,
Man.
fun one
I'm
day.
pretty casual when it comes to Mega Man. Like I said, the NES era stuff. But yeah, I've played them. I haven't sat there and be like, let me write a lore book about this. So thanks for the education. Well, anything else for story?
No.
Yeah, I think we cleaned that. If that was a chicken wing, there ain't nothing left on that bone. Let's jump into the gameplay / controls. All right, so the gameplay for this game, it plays very much like your typical Mega Man X games. However, I will say the first thing you're going to notice right off the bat after the first enemy you meet is that the difficulty is definitely increased and ramped up. The enemies are going to take a ton of shot from your blaster. Even the charge blaster, like it's back in this one, but it's going to take more than one charge to kill them. The enemies do respawn if you go off. I'm talking a millimeter off the screen. The enemies are going to respawn. A lot of their attack patterns are very spammy. Like as soon as they start shooting a beam, it's going to just keep coming. The difficulty is very, very high for this game. It's, even for a Mega Man game. There's some notoriously tough Mega Man games out there, and X games, because you don't want to call them Mega Man. But yeah, that's the first thing you're going to notice right off the bat. To the point where, honestly, in this game, I was actively avoiding combat scenarios because I knew they were going to wreck me in seconds sometimes. I'm talking 3 hits. Like your first enemy you see will kill you in 3 hits. Like very first entry level. It's a tough game. Do you guys have any thoughts on that?
So, full disclosure, I am not great at the X series. I'm never going to say I've avoided it, but I played the first one. Was like, wow, I'm really bad at this, and I'm generally good at like 16-bit platformers and stuff. But I will agree, this one's hard. I don't think it's impossible. I think it's one of those games if you devote enough time to, you can pick up patterns, you can do all that. So it's they call it Nintendo hard. It's Nintendo hard.
Yeah.
It's not super cheap. I think there's some level design stuff we'll kind of get into in a little bit that don't help with the difficulty, but
Sure. I'll say this, like when you get the parts and the power-ups, it's a literal game changer. Like it makes the game so much easier. Even like to the point where the people will pick the Mega Man games. There's always like people have different strategies for which bosses you're going to fight first. This game allows you to pick up items and then exit the level and backtrack once you do have certain abilities unlocked, which is cool in some regards, but and sometimes it kind of extends the gameplay artificially. This game, there's certain power-ups where it's like I just could not make the jump without the boots part. To where I even told Nate, because I kind of knew going in and played it before we got together and played. I was like, hey, I don't care what we do. You can play it your way, but like we're grabbing these boots first because we're not going to get past some of these jumps. So this game does introduce a system where you can grab parts. You know, they always have the armor or whatever in the Mega Man X games. This one, you can only have one equipped at a time. Now, the caveat to that is if you don't pick up any of the extra parts, you can unlock a gold armor. The gold armor basically is every single part in one, but you only get that on the last stage for like the castle, right? Like the 3-stage castle. So there's constantly weird design choices like that in this game. I appreciate the variety, and it allows you to kind of attack the bosses in different ways with different armors and different weapons. But I don't understand why it's like, oh yeah, you can have all of them for the castle, but not the rest of the game. It's a weird like handicap almost. I don't understand that design choice at all.
So like my thing with Mega Man, why I think they're kind of makes them stand out between other platformers is the freedom to kind of go where you want, how you want. I feel like there's design choices in this one specifically where it lets you do that, but it's going to screw you if you pick the wrong one or go the wrong way. Like there were several times when we're looking at levels. I know Barry and I had kind of similar issues with it where it's like, where the hell do I go? And, oh, that's a ladder. Like we had a couple like that where this game was, I had a completely different experience with this game before I got those damn boots. And as soon as I got the boots where I could actually boost around and jump, much more enjoyable experience. I almost wonder like, so 2 added the slide.
Yeah.
This one didn't add like an in mechanic feature that you start out with. If this game would have started out with those boots, I think it would have been like a game changer. Like,
oh yeah.
The freedom of movement. So I had trouble making basic ass jumps in this game. I'm not horrible at platformers by any means, but I'm talking easy ass jumps I was struggling to make because I'd slide and like slide off the ramp or jump too late. The boots give you the freedom not only to like jump farther, but like you can air dash, and that changes boss battles. That changes just basic movement. Changes how this. The one thing I will say about this Mega Man game specifically is it's so much more vertical than every Mega Man game I've personally played. There might be some later on that are a lot more vertical, but like the levels are very up and down instead of like side to side. Like it is a side scroller, but like there's so much backtracking and navigating that's different in this one. Or without the boots, that would have been just insanely difficult. I had a way more enjoyable experience with those boots. So I think it's not just from a difficulty standpoint, but from an actual like gameplay, making it feel different standpoint. I'm surprised you didn't start out with those and just keep them, you know?
Yeah, it's interesting. Coming from like a primary background of 8-bit Mega Man, like when you're going down, you just fall down and the screen shifts. Like I've dabbled with Mega Man X. I've never really like dove into it, but this one took a minute to get used to because I had to keep thinking like, oh, I fall down here, and it would literally kill me, and the level would start over, and I was like, what the fuck? This is Mega Man. There's so much like wall climbing and wall jumping you have to do in this one, and that did take a little minute. I'm not going to knock the game for that. Obviously, it's a different choice, but as a 8-bit Mega Man player, personally, it did take some adjustment. I do think it does give you the tools that you need to succeed in some of these puzzles and the navigation, but getting them, like you need a guide. You kind of got to go in knowing your game plan, where you're going to back out, like how you're going to backtrack. And to me, honestly, it kind of takes the fun out of it. And then maybe because we're sitting here doing an episode on it, if I could, I own this game, obviously, but if I would have spent more time with it, I guess I could have found out some of that stuff on my own. But it's almost like you need a guide. You kind of got to have a game plan to go in and figure out which order you're doing, which time you're going to use the certain suits and certain pieces at what time, whether you want to play the long game and hold out for the gold armor, whether you don't. It's good variety, honestly. I appreciate the flexibility of kind of like letting you pick how you want to do your journey. But at the same time, there's just weird design choices, and it's not because it's different. So like, perfect example for me is a lot of the pits I was talking about, like I'm used to going down. There's times when you do have to go down, and it's a leap of faith. Like you can't see the floor under you. You can't pan the camera down or up to kind of see the floor under you. And to me, that's just cheap. That's cheap death stuff. That's, archaic arcade era games where they try to take your quarters. It's kind of a cheap out. And especially for how polished the Mega Man series is for its platforming, that was a little disappointing, honestly.
That was one of my biggest takeaways while playing this was you play the very first Mega Man, you're like, it's so tight. Every level is so like well designed. And like, it's a hard game, but if you die, it's your fault. There's several times in this one I was like, I died in the intro level because I went down and it was a pit. And I was like, that doesn't feel like Mega Man. That was one of my actual biggest takeaways from it. As far as gameplay, though, I do want to say the power-ups, when you do actually go out and find them, they're so rewarding and they're so cool. The helmet's probably the weakest one, but it gives you a map, so like helps you navigate a lot easier.
Just sucks you can't pull it up whenever you want.
Right. But the shield and the blaster are so dirty, bro. Like, they make this game so fun. Like, so there's one of the upgrades you can get where if you get hit, it puts like a timed shield around you so you can't take damage while you have the shield up. It is a true game changer. And then the upgraded blaster, like I can't even describe it. It shoots like these 2 spheres that come out of it that are like heat seeking, and it shoots like a beam. It's so dirty, bro. Like, I feel like they did a really good job of making them like, you know, semi-challenging to find and unlock, but when you do, it's like totally rewarding and totally worth it. Like they actually do feel like it's not like you're grabbing a canister that gives you 1 extra health point. They're bangers of upgrades, and they're totally worth going after.
I'll say this too about the canister since you brought it up. Definitely a requirement in this game, just because you take so much damage, and even the bosses, like I feel like the boss patterns were super easy to get. Like you could figure them out literally in like, you know, 1 or 2 attempts. But if they hit you, they're knocking your bar in half. Like you have to go for the health tanks. And it brings me back to my earlier point. Like play this game with a guide if you're going to play it, because it's tough going if you don't. You got anything, Barry?
I barely made it through any of these. I made it to the boss in one of them, and the bee, and I tried the bee probably 20 times, and I just could not figure out like what I was supposed to do.
So here's the perfect example of what we're talking about.
I know exactly what I was going to say.
I tried the bee, and I was like, okay, the bee's the first one, and if I'm going left to right, like I'm a left to right OCD, like it's got to be in an order. Like don't give me the freedom of choice if there really isn't one. It's like I would rather this has been a linear game for me to progress through and feel accomplished in getting the next level done than say, okay, do whatever one you want, because like you can't do whatever one you want.
Yeah.
There was a level, and I'm trying to find out which one it was, but I can't. I sent you guys a picture of it, and I can't figure out who it was supposed to be. It's the one that's got the boxes with the black and yellow stripes on them.
Give me 1 second.
Or just in the picture.
I don't know. I'm trying to find the level.
This one?
Yeah, which level was that? Like, which boss was that?
We just did it. That was the one.
Oh, yeah. Hang on.
Was it? It wasn't the Rhino guy, was it? I did the first and the second one.
It was the best level.
And then one of them on the bottom. That's all I remember.
Give me a second. Yeah, it was Tunnel Rhino. I'm sorry.
Was it Tunnel Rhino? It doesn't look like Tunnel Rhino.
I thought it was the beetle.
Oh, it was the beetle. I do remember seeing the beetle. Okay. I remember picking him being like, oh, Beetleborg.
I just played this yesterday, so I was like, I think it's the beetle. Yeah.
Whoever the beetle one was.
Gravity Beetle. Yeah.
So
okay.
it got to the point where I literally like didn't know what I was supposed to do. I kept trying to jump up and down, and then I got into a pit and I couldn't jump out of the pit, and I texted you guys and was like, am I dumb? Am I like missing something? And Bryan was like, no, you need the boots. And I'm like, okay, which one has the boots? And there's no way for you to exit the level to go back to the main menu in this game.
Well, you can go back to the character selection screen, but there's nothing that tells you that.
The character select, not that one. Like I would go to the main menu and try and hit the exit button and it wouldn't do anything.
Oh, yeah.
I couldn't leave the stage mid-stage. I would have to die and use up all my health or my lives.
You can go back, but it has to be at like, if you're already in the boss stage, it won't let you.
No,
so
I'm like
handicaps.
Beginning of the level. I could not figure out a way to get out.
You can
there was
do
no
it,
exit.
It just doesn't tell you, which is the shitty thing.
I used it a couple times.
Every button combination possible.
Yeah.
It wouldn't let me exit. There's an exit button, and I would click it, and it would make a noise. Or it was like, meh, meh, and it wouldn't let me do anything. It wouldn't let me leave.
Weird.
And then where I was at, I was stuck into a point where the enemy was trying to shoot me, but it wasn't at an angle that it couldn't hit me. So then I was stuck into a pit that I couldn't get the enemy to kill me to get out of the level because I didn't have the boots, because I don't know who has the boots first. Like, what? If I can't beat every single level without any equipment, then there's no point of having it choose your order. And that's like the worst design flaw you can have in a game.
Yeah.
You do not give a player access to something that they cannot beat without whatever they need to.
Well, it's a weird choice too for Mega Man, because there's always been like, hey, you go in this order to get this upgrade to beat this boss first, right? But this one, like, it turns into Metroid almost, where it wants you to like start a level, pick up a certain item, exit the level, beat this boss, so you can go back into that initial first level. It's weird how much it makes you backtrack.
It feels like there's a selection because it's a Mega Man game and it has to, but it's not it's kind of like it's an illusion, man. Because like, okay, I was gonna bring up the point when you brought up the bee. It's the easiest boss in the game if you have the right gun.
Yeah.
Because literally,
That bee kicked my asshole.
if you have the gravity gun, you don't have to even hit him. You just shoot it anywhere and it kills him. Yeah. He's literally like known as the easiest one. And I was like, I would have never known this without this guide.
I tried so hard. I was like, I'm gonna beat at least one boss. And this bee kind of just swoops you and puts little minions out, and like I just could not do it.
And if I didn't have him like in the guide, so he already played it, you know, and I was like, if I would have gotten like you, totally blind, I wouldn't have got anything done in this game.
No,
so I was making jumps, dude.
So I got to the bee and I was like, okay, let me try a different one. I don't know, and then I tried the Blizzard Buffalo. Is that his name?
Yep.
And I got to the point at the end where there's supposed to be a ladder, but it doesn't look like a fucking ladder. So I'm trying to wall bounce off the left to right all the way up to the top. And there was a little lip that I couldn't wall bounce up to the top. And if you fell down, there were spikes on the bottom. So I'm just like wall bouncing. It's not letting me do anything. Like, I don't know what it is about the ladder, but as soon as you jump on the ladder, it doesn't grab.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how you're supposed to grab it. Like, why are you letting me wall bounce against a ladder when it's supposed to be a ladder? So I'm just thinking I'm supposed to wall bounce this whole thing. So fuck this one. I don't know how to do this level. Maybe I'm missing something. And then I quit that one because I've died. It actually gives me an opportunity to die in an ice pit instead of Beetleborg. So I try Beetleborg next, and then I get into a pit that I can't get out of, and I can't leave in the main menu. And I just got like so frustrated with this game. I'm like, I don't want to play this anymore.
Yeah.
This sucks. Like, it's not that it was hard. Like, there's points where I'm like, okay, I'm not super great at this game, but I made it to the last boss. All right, cool. I can't beat the boss because I'm not great, which is fine. But apparently, I just don't have items that I'm supposed to need, but whatever. Yeah. I didn't like the feel of the movement. The movement was, I didn't like it at all. It wasn't, I don't even know how to describe it. I thought I was like, I had an input lag. I couldn't understand like why it wasn't doing what I wanted it to do. I'm like, do I have an input lag? Mm-hmm. I can't have an input lag on an emulator. I don't understand. Yeah.
We had a weird similar situation where I was playing on the Super Nintendo first. Full disclosure, like I practiced the shit out of this a little bit before I played it with Nate, so I didn't like a total piece of shit and suck at it because it's hard. And I was like, this feels really smooth. And then because I wanted to actually try to beat the game, I'm not gonna be able to beat it on Super Nintendo because you get hit, you get fucked up. So I went out and bought the Mega Man X Legacy Collection so you can put it on easy mode where you get more hits. So we're playing it on the Xbox version, and I'm like, this feels sticky. Like, it's the best way I can describe it. Like, you stick to the floor. It doesn't want you to jump. If you're wall jumping, it feels like it's a struggle to jump off the wall. So I was like, maybe it's an emulation thing. So then again, I went home and threw it in Super Nintendo, not the Retron, and I'm like, it's the game. It's not emulation.
I don't get it. And like, I had the same exact issue with Super Metroid, and that's why like I don't like playing that game. Is I feel like I have an input lag because I played it on the Switch Online, and I said, Bryan, is this right? Is there something wrong with this game? Because like I don't like the feel of the movement. And you were like, no, it feels normal. And I'm like, I just don't like this.
Metroid is floaty. This one shouldn't be though, and like, especially with the speed. Because like I said, I'm not bad at these type of games. I could not make the most basic jumps, and I was like, Bryan was kind of laughing at me at first. I'm like, dude, like, I don't know what's happening. I've never been this bad at a game in my life, and a lot of it is like the level design too does not do you any favors. So like, you're walking, and then there's like a sudden slope, and it's just like makes you go super fast. So you go, oh shit, I have to jump, and then it would just like kind of stick, and everything just felt like a not even a half second's too long, like a quarter second delay. Like, well,
that was the problem with that Buffalo level is you get on that little ice and it slides you down, and I'm already panicking. So I'm just once I hit the wall, I'm mashing the jump button, thinking I need to wall bounce. Why slide me down? Let me jump and stick to the ladder.
I watched this boy so many off-screen like stick to the wall saves where I was like, how are you not dead? It's like, and he just climb up. I'm like, how did you make that jump? Like,
practice, baby.
His character wasn't even on the screen, but he was sticking to like the wall in the very last frame, and he just climbed back up. And I'm like,
I didn't want to look scrubby, bro. That's all it was. It was clutch.
There's just a lot of things in this game that like the controls didn't feel good. The level design was fine if you know what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
But the level design as individual levels by themselves were poor because you needed things. They were... The best I can describe it is it felt like a linear game split up into chunks, letting you do whatever you wanted to. And that didn't work for me at all. Especially if, like, I don't know, maybe there on the main menu, there would have been a little... Maybe Zero, like, calls you and was like, hey, man, if you're struggling with this level, try...
Mm-hmm.
Buffalo Bill over here. Like, I don't know, maybe have an NPC being like, hey, maybe you should try this one. Like, to give you a little hint of being like, hey, you try this one.
I will say, this is your first Mega Man game? Like, one of the first?
No, I'm a Battle Network person.
It was
so
like traditional Mega Man, yeah.
I
will say this is probably one of the worst choices if I had to start somebody out with, just because it's so drastically different in terms of like the backtracking, the movement.
I used to have all of them on the Nintendo. I just don't remember them very much.
Probably 2. I feel like everybody in the world had a copy of 2.
I had 1 through 6.
I had 1 through 4.
Ooh, nice.
You had 6.
4's top tier.
I just had 1 through 4.
Excuse me. Those are also cheap now.
Yeah,
they were all in box.
I will say, I was like, ooh,
this is definitely this is definitely not the one I would start people out on because of what exactly you're talking about. Like, yeah, it's great. Every Mega Man game lets you choose which boss first, but like a guide is damn near required for this one, more so than any other. I'm not talking about just beating the boss as fast as possible. I'm talking you ain't making jumps without certain parts. You're not surviving certain parts without certain weapons. Yeah, 100% you're speaking to my main
and like
criticism
maybe
of this game.
It's the time where it's like, oh, you could only afford one game, so like that was all you were playing for all of that time. But even then, like if you got to a point, and I know other games do this, but I can't think of them off the top of my head. But if you got to a point where you got to a level where it did require you, like where I was at, where it required the boots to jump, you could be like, hey, a little fucking 0 would pop up, and we'll be like, hey, you need the boots. And it didn't tell you anything after that. It was like, hey, you need these boots to progress. And then you go, okay, I need some boots. I got to figure out where to get them. Like, help me piece the puzzle a little bit together. Like, once I hit a wall, I don't know, is there a boots? Is it a jetpack? Am I supposed to get a cool little, like, anti-gravity bubble? I mean, there's a lot of options of, like, verticality without jumping. Mm-hmm. Why would I think of jump boots? Why would I seek out jump boots without knowing it's supposed to be boots? Like, it could have been anything. Are they little Astro Boy legs that I transform into? Am I supposed to get a deployable like glider of some kind? I don't know.
Yeah, it's weird though, because like, yeah, this is a continuation of the series, so I guess they expect their fan base that's supported them from the beginning, but this one's different, and without giving you any sort of tools to navigate those changes, I'm sure there's people back then that were like, this is different. This game is pretty divisive amongst the community because of like the backtracking, because of a lot of like the way how required some of these armor pieces are. And I get it. There's even like, there's one mech you use in the game that goes fast underwater, but if like you don't get that mech, you're not beating that level. It's a detriment. You need a guide for this game. I've said that like 6 times already. I'm gonna go ahead and say it again. You need a guide for this game.
I guess to me, like, since, we'll kind of move on here in a minute, but like, I think the gold standard for platformers of 16 bits, like Super Mario World, like there's a little bit of backtracking in that game, but you also know what it is. So like, you hit the block, you open up the block, and that level's gonna have a different path. This one, like, there's times if you just don't know, like that level we were playing with the Rhino thing, it's like, oh, you have to drill on it, you can drill those boxes. I'm like, how was I ever supposed to fucking know that? So it's like there's these big 4 square boxes and they're kind of cantered, where one's a little taller than the other one. You have to like dig down the map like 2 screens, and it's like I would have never found that out without a guide.
I think it wanted to do what like Zelda was doing, where Zelda gives you tools, right, and then once you get that tool, you're presented with puzzles that need that tool. Like, there's a lot of times, and we talked about it with Minish Cap, there's a lot of times where you could go into areas, and it was very clear, like, oh, hey, there's a giant hobbit hole door, but the dirt looks a little different, and I know, like, there's something, but I don't know what to do with this yet. And then, it kind of clued you in, was like, okay, and then you got the claws and was like, oh, you're supposed to dig holes. I'm like, okay, let me go back to this, dig the hole. But a lot of them, like the little wand where you'd have to like flip stuff.
Yeah.
It presented this, it gave you opportunities to use that tool after you got it. So you knew what you were supposed to do with it, and then go later and be like, okay, I know, maybe let me try this one. Maybe this is a solution for it, but it didn't really put you in those scenarios until it asked the question. Like, it didn't make you go to a place without having that tool readily available.
Right.
And then it was up to you, once you got to that area, to experiment to figure it out. Yeah. This one just puts you in those areas with no tools and then expects you to figure it out somehow.
It's frustrating.
And I don't like games that basically require you to have a walkthrough.
Yeah.
I want to play the game like through it, and then once I get stuck, if I want to get to a walkthrough, I'll go to a walkthrough. But this one was just like, fuck you from the beginning. You need
Yes.
it day one.
Which is extremely frustrating. I think some of the power-ups and some of the weapons in this one are some of the best in the series, honestly. Which is like, if you would have had traditional, like, more freedom, I think this one would have been a hit, because like some of the extra guns you get are so gnarly, bro, and some people will literally never get to play it because they just can't find it or figure out how to beat a certain part. So
I'm going to close with this and we'll probably move on. For every innovative, cool, unique, however you want to word it, thing this game does, for example, like Bit and Bite, after you beat your third level, it sends 2 robots after you that can randomly attack you.
Mm-hmm.
You can't move past these bathrooms. If you're playing and you walked into a big empty room, that's why, because it depends on what order you go in. So like that's innovative. That's cool. If you don't kill them in the game using their weakness, you have to find them again at the end. So like that's cool. Very cool. Or as, hey, play as Zero for the first time. Very cool. It takes 2 steps back for every cool thing it does. For like Zero, it doesn't tell you how to switch to him at all. You have to push start. You have to push the right bumper. And then it's like when you're playing a Zero, he gets more health. He gets a more powerful gun. So he's very helpful. But then he's got permadeath. So if he dies, you screw up, it's over. And also, you can't fight bosses with him. So it's like every time they add something cool, that's 2 steps back. And that's the best way I can sum up the quote innovations for this game, or what makes it different from X2 or X1. Every time they do something and try something new, even if it's a great idea, the implementation's 2 steps back. 1 step forward, 2 steps back. It's the best way I can summarize the gameplay for this game.
Yep. I found out you could switch to Zero after my panic of trying to figure out how to get out of the level. Couldn't get out the level, but I was like, I guess I can play as Zero now.
I think it's very frustrating. I think this could have been like a great game.
That's why that picture I sent you guys had Zero.
Yeah,
And
that's the
they
thing. He
just
gets
figured out
so much more health. And that's the thing. You can't even pick up the upgrades to get health for X when you're playing as Zero. They're not on the screen. So like
Oh, you don't know they're there to switch back?
And you can only switch to Zero once, so it's not like you can just keep toggling. You can't tag him.
Oh, really? I guess
Yeah.
I never tried switching back to him.
Oh, I tried because this shit's hard. Yeah, it's that's the best I'm gonna end with. 1 step forward, 2 steps back for everything in terms of gameplay. All right, guys, let's talk graphics. I want to start with actually something really cool that I didn't know initially going into this game. We're kind of spoiled now. You don't think of things like this, but at the time, Mega Man X2 was the first one to introduce the CX4 chip, which was developed for Capcom by Hitachi. The whole idea of this is that you could get 3D vector-based graphics on a Super Nintendo cartridge, primarily focused on like wireframe, able to compute the spinning of the wireframe, something you don't see very often on Super Nintendo. Star Fox had something similar with like the polygons, but this was specifically to calculate rotations and have it run at a smooth frame rate. For this game, you literally see it right off the bat in the main menu. It'll say Mega Man and the X comes in a wireframe and starts spinning. It's pretty cool to see on Super Nintendo. Honestly, the first time I booted up, I didn't think anything of it. And then I read this and I was like, oh, that's actually really interesting. It's pretty cool. It's most noticeable in the gameplay. You'll have like waterfalling, and it's got a transparency to it, something you don't see very often in the Super Nintendo. Very cool, and it definitely helps it stand out. Also, when you're fighting Sigma, if you make it that far, he's wireframed and he's spinning the whole time. He's chasing you in like the quote cutscene, I guess, when he's wireframe. But also, you're fighting in game. It's very smooth. None of the slowdown happens when that's in game, also, which I found very impressive. There is slowdown in this game, but never when those advanced graphics for the time are happening. So that was pretty cool.
I don't remember which boss it is, but like there's the little bosses before the main bosses in stage. There's that one that's like a hexagon and it's just a bunch of spinning pot.
Yeah.
It looks really cool in the game. It looks like, it looks like Atari Jaguar graphics, honestly.
It was like vector-based.
Like Cybermorph, that's what it looks like. It was really cool.
Yeah. It even changes colors when you shoot it, so you know you're hitting it, and the game never underperforms when, this is the second time they've ever messed with it, because it was in Mega Man X2, but there's definitely some cool effects with it in 3, and it helps it stand out. But yeah, as far as the graphics for this game, I think it's a looker. You've got nice big boss sprites, and then some of them are the animation's really good on them. My favorite, maybe I'm biased, is is it shock catfish or electric catfish? He had the whiskers, and like the whiskers would flip when he's running at you, and he kind of do like the fishy mouth. Like it's little touches like that, and it's weird because like the fandom like shits on all the bosses in this game. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I'm not super deep in the Mega Man lore, but I thought they were fun, man. You have like the crawfish that is constantly clamping his claws, and there's a bunch of little things that the sprites do that help it stand out, and it all runs very smooth. There is some slowdown when it turns into a bullet hell, but you kill the enemy to move on. It's gonna happen with Super Nintendo games, but overall the graphics are pretty great for this game. Again, and having the wireframe stuff, it's super cool. It stands out. There's quite nothing else like it. Pretty neat stuff.
Mega Man's always been pretty. It's always had cool character design. I think one of the things like why there is criticism with the bosses, I personally like the bosses, so at me or whatever, I don't care. But traditional Mega Man, they're kind of associated with the weapon you get for beating them. So like there's a boomerang gun, you get a boomerang gun or whatever. This one's not really like that. They're all like very animal based, which I think they look awesome. I wish there was like figures of these bosses. They're pretty sweet. They're like robotic animals. I don't know if you guys remember like the McFarlane animal toys that came
Neon
out.
Tiger's cool.
Yeah, like they're super cool. So he was hard, my God. But they all are they're not necessarily intimidating, but they're big sprites, like Bryan kind of said. They're colorful, they're mechanical, which is cool. It feels in tune with Mega Man. I don't really know why people crapped on them. I guess because they weren't associated with a weapon, but
yeah, it kind of fits the world with X, where it's like basically you have these machine-based, computer-based hybrids.
Right.
They fit in the world just fine.
I'm not really looking for it to fit a weapon. I'm looking at a character design, and from a character design standpoint, I think they did a good job with all the bosses. They're cool. Even like the bit and bite when they're chasing, like one of them's got the really weird like his stomach is like his screen,
like crane belly, bro.
Yeah, so like there's like cool little design choices. Like they look very different from each other. And then like the one dude looks like Boba Fett, like Vile.
Yeah.
So like I don't know, man. I thought they were pretty badass looking. I think it's a really pretty game too, colorful. Like I think Mega Man has a certain prestige going in with character design. I think this one does it fine. Honestly, I don't know why people would criticize it.
For all the criticisms I have of this game, graphics is not one of them. I think it's probably one of the shining points for this game, quite frankly. It runs smooth. The animations are smooth. I'm not going to sit here and say like it pushes the Super Nintendo, but it's a good showcase for the system, honestly. Especially end of life, to sit there and give the effort to experiment with like a new chip and new graphics going into the 32-bit era. Like that was a cool, they didn't have to do that, Especially for they knew this was going to be like the last of the trilogy for that console. They really did not have to do that, and they did. So like I'm going to give them their flowers on that. Like great job on the graphics.
I think this is one of the best Super Nintendo games, like period. I mean, like I played most of whatever the B level was, but when you look in that one, the amount of detail that's in the background is like insane. Like you've got all of the panels that are all mechanical, like they have these tiny little portions that are exposed, and then they have little wires going places, and there's random little lights in areas that just flash. Or the conveyor, right? There's a conveyor where you drop down and there's like an enemy on it, and you can tell which way the conveyor moves because the little parts on the conveyor are like a gradient color, and so you'll see the direction those are moving. The parallax scrolling in this is really good. I think this game has so much depth to it that I had a problem with Gunstar Heroes. Not so much Gunstar Heroes, little bit on Gunstar Heroes, actually. I'm trying to remember. The Golden Axe fighting game.
Oh, yeah.
Where, like, I couldn't tell where I was, but this one, like, the depth of all the levels, like, the foreground is a lot brighter, and then they've muted the background a little bit, but you're still giving it detail. Like, this one, like, it's got chain link in it, and then some of the chain link fences, like, broken as you're moving, or, like, right in the beginning of the level, you see, like, you're outside, and there's, like, a fence you have to run by, and you have to jump on top of warehouses. And then behind the warehouses, you can see, like, the dead planet that it's on. It's like a dusty, dirty, like dead-looking planet. And then it's got the sky behind it, and the sky's got clouds, and they're all different colors. And then it goes even further back, and you can see even more, like, warehouses in the backgrounds that move at a different speed because of the parallax. And then it's got little, like, I don't know, they're like posts that have... There's just like a bunch of stuff in it that's super detailed, and they didn't, like, you guys didn't have to put an entire landscape of dead planet and warehouses back here. But here we are.
Or even the sprites, like the sprite work's fantastic. Like when the characters are speaking, you get like a the text, but their mouths are moving. Like that's almost unheard of on Super Nintendo. They blink. Even like the eye animations, they don't sway or anything, but they will blink. They will have facial expressions. And again, this was a phone-in game, if you will. This is a third-party developed. They didn't have to put those extra touches. They knew people were going to flock to the 32-bit ones. Mm-hmm. So to see that on Super Nintendo is pretty cool. And even transparency, I remember like early PlayStation games, that was one of the selling things for the graphics. It was like, oh, look, the water is actually transparent instead of just a solid piece of graphic or whatever. Mm-hmm. So to see that on a Super Nintendo is very impressive.
Well, even the animations, like the dash animation has those little like puffs of smoke behind them. And as they get further back, they dissipate. So you can see like they fade as you go. And it's not just 5 puffs and then they puff out of existence. Like it's a gradual puff, fade, puff, fade, puff, fade, and they fade the further you go. It's not just like, oh, a little cloud and then boop, it's gone, like a bubble. So there's just a lot of like care put into the graphics in this that I wish they would have put in the level design, but
Yeah, it helps when your levels are kind of like, but they look pretty. So I think everything was like very layered and dynamic. Like there's always something kind of going on in the background. So my hats off. I think we can all agree, like universally the best part of this game is how it looks.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's even something on the back of the box where they talk about the graphics. Like, they're proud of it, and they should be. It says there's 16 megs, plus the C4 graphics chip adds to enhanced realism, longer levels somehow, and amazing 3D effects. It's just cool. Like, I didn't know that going in, so they figured out that, Capcom had a chip developed for them. It's pretty neat.
Like, it's cool. Like, even, like, on this B level in the background, like, you've got the wall, and then there's a window that's like chain link fence, but then the middle of it's broken, and then behind that you can see like a bee helicopter, and then the bee helicopter in the background has this glowing orange light that fades in and out that like illuminates this helicopter. But it's like we're on a boss level, like you're supposed to be focused on fighting the boss,
right? But
there's this helicopter in the background with a little green or an orange light just slowly like glowing and then fading and then glowing and then fading. Like, why are we doing all this?
Yeah. There was some really impressive lighting in this game, honestly. Like, I know you brought up their level earlier with like the Rhino with like the electricity gun in the back. Even it would like fade in and out like, when it was moving. I was like, that's completely unnecessary but cool. So
it's cool.
For me, the graphics are definitely one of the higher points for this game for sure. Like
this is a really good looking game.
Full transparency, I didn't get to beat it. The last level Nate and I got to, the fucking game crashed. So I looked at Nate, I was like, we're watching this last level. Like, I'm not doing this again. I already lost enough hair pulling it out, trying to beat this game. But,
I thought you could save state on that collection.
I thought you could too.
Ooh.
You can't.
It says save game, ? And you save it and it doesn't do anything.
Yeah, there's a password system it wants you to use. So like, I don't understand what the save system was for. Which that save system's actually in the 32-bit version of the game, so maybe it was just something they left over from that. But the Legacy Collection is the Super Nintendo port, so I don't know, maybe they just pulled the screen over or something. But yeah, I thought you could also fast forward and rewind. I thought that was going to make it easy. Nah, you can't. You guys got anything else for graphics, or moving on?
Nope.
All right, let's move on to one of the most fabled Mega Man categories, the music / the sound. Alright, I'm probably going to catch some heat for this, because I know, and truthfully, just to be transparent, Mega Man 2 is one of my favorite video game soundtracks of any time, any era of all time. So there's a very high bar set for Mega Man, and the music particularly. We'll talk about the sounds also, but the music for this game, in my opinion, is not very great. And knowing who's behind it kind of adds to that and makes it a little worse for me, honestly. They actually, part of the third-party development for this game, they actually had a freelance worker work on the music for this game. Keniyo Yamashita, you will know her from the NES Castlevania, which again is top 3 of all time, my favorite soundtracks. It's literally on my Spotify, and I'm not much of a chiptune music guy, but Mega Man 2 and Castlevania both are right up there, very, very top for me. She also works on the MXX version of Snatcher, and I had to add this one because it's awesome. The Game Boy Color version of Croc 2. So But no, like clearly very talented. Like the Castlevania soundtrack's beloved, and they even continue to sample and cover these songs from this day. But
I can't believe Castlevania was her debut.
Yeah, isn't it crazy,
what a
right?
That's
debut.
crazy.
Yeah. And it's a little disappointing in this game, too, because they actually, for the credits, the engineering staff are credited for the game soundtrack, but she worked as a freelance capacity. Like, she should be credited for the music of this game. I don't think the actual composition for the music's horrible in this game. I do have an issue with the instrumentation, though. Previous Mega Man games, they have a distinct sound, or, using the NES, you're going to use the chips that's available to you. NES, they could get around that. They had like a pseudo guitar sound. They had a pseudo drum machine. This one, it loops so often also, and the choices they use are very like tingy and wubby instead of sounding like an actual instrument. You have some highs, you have some lows, sure, but I think overall, there's 3 or 4 songs that stand out for me. But the thing is, man, it's definitely a step back, and especially in the Mega Man, like the original Mega Man X, it's an all-timer, like for sure. This one's just really a step back, and for me, it really is the instrumentation. It's not a great listen, truthfully, in my opinion.
I think it's very inconsistent. There's some absolute bangers on here for sure, but I think you can go back to pretty much any other Mega Man game, and it's the whole damn soundtrack is bangers.
Yeah,
that's the thing. Another thing with this one, and it might just be the speed of it. We talked about it earlier with the controls. Like, there's a weird thing going on with. So I like 8-bit Mega Man to me. Like, the music pushes your character forward. Like, you're like, even his like aggressive ass running stance, like the music, it adds to it. You're like, I'm gonna go fuck shit up. This one's like a weird speed, and the music's only like, some of these songs are like 15-second loops. That's it.
So it's being generous.
Not super driving. It's like I don't know. It's weird. A lot of times music can like help motivate you and get you through shit. And I feel like especially in traditional Mega Man, it's like they're very like driving forces. And this one, it does not. It's just like kind of background noise. Now, for every great song, I feel like you have 2 or 3 like okay songs. I don't think there's anything inherently horrible where I have to turn the audio off in this game.
Yeah.
But I think for a Mega Man soundtrack, inconsistent. I wouldn't call it bad. I would call it inconsistent.
Yeah, we don't get that, the Golden Axe fighting game song. We don't get that levels of bad or Daikatana levels of bad. But yeah, it's disappointing. And for me, it's like the repetitiveness of like the instrumentation. Like the guitar, you could play 3 songs where they're guitar heavy, and you're almost going to be like, is this the same song? Because there's no variety into the instrumentation. Some highlights for me, I really liked the intro, the opening stage. I thought that was really good. And also it kind of set my...
Is it that slower song?
It's a little bit slower, but it's like it picks up, and then Zero's theme plays immediately afterwards.
Okay.
So you have 2 great songs as like your first level, your introduction. I think that kind of set the tone high for me.
Wait, you mean the main level? Sorry, the main...
The very first
menu or the
very first stage
level?
you play as,
the whole
where it
level.
swaps you with
Okay.
Zero. Yeah,
I'm thinking of the main menu.
yeah, you're good. Yeah, it sets the tone high right off the bat, and then it kind of just dips. The standouts for me is like Toxic Seahorse level has like a really cool drum fills and drum rolls. It's very like rock and rolly. It's very fast.
Sounds very Mega Man.
But it also stands out because the rest of the soundtrack doesn't have those like heavy percussion. It's interesting. And then the Blizzard Buffalo stage, it's not necessarily like a great song, but it's different enough where it kind of sounds like spooky, like Violet Town Pokemon music in a weird way. There's some standout tracks. The Volt Catfish one was pretty sweet, but I do think the instrumentation really holds it back. I know the CD-based 32-bit game version of this game has a completely different soundtrack. A lot of people don't say it's any better. They say it's different, obviously, but there is also, you can tell a lot of the resources and the time, the money went into that version. There's J-pop vocals in some of the songs in the 32-bit version of the game. The opening theme, One More Time, and the ending theme, I'm a Believer. Hilarious Shrek reference, shout out. But yeah, they're vocalized, so it's interesting.
I feel like the tracks, if you listen to them by themselves, you're like, oh, this is a good track. And then you keep listening to the track and you're like, it's kind of the same track the whole time. Which, it's like, I don't know, the loop, it's the loop on it is not great. Like, there are some songs that can do flawless loops and like good ones that will just keep going and you never get tired of them.
Right.
But I just don't think the loop is there for me to really like, I don't know, man. It's hard. It's hard sometimes when you've listened to music on games that are kind of similar to this, that like you can't get enough of the song and you don't mind playing over and over and over. But part of this game, it being difficult and annoying, the music didn't help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fair.
And I want to say there's some times where you play a game and you're getting frustrated by it, but it's like something about the music kind of makes you want to keep going.
Yeah, it's driving.
This one was just like, we're lost, turn the music off in the car, like I gotta concentrate because I'm getting frustrated that I keep making the wrong turn. I don't know. Like,
I had the same experience.
the music wasn't, it wasn't bad. It just wasn't, I don't know, man.
It was fine. It wasn't bad.
That's the thing. Like, it wasn't bad,
Mega Man, dude.
but for a Mega Man game, it's almost a sin for how it is.
I don't have the Mega Man
Right.
soundtrack knowledge to like really compare it. So it wasn't like terrible. It just didn't make me want to keep going when shit got tough. Mm-hmm. It didn't hype me up like Rocky.
Well, you know, you're going to hear
You
it
know?
again in 10 seconds again anyway.
Nothing driving about it.
Yeah. And maybe I would have tried a little bit harder if, I don't know, something in the background was like, all right, no problem, I got this. Like, let me try it again. But I don't know. I zoned it out at some point.
I mean, like, I'm just saying, there's wrestlers that use Mega Man music for their entrances and shit, and like, because it's hype, and this wasn't it, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty disappointing.
How do you guys feel about the sound effects?
I kind of feel similar. There were some good sound effects, and there were some I looked at you and said, "Holy shit, how'd that make it?" Because some were like really bad. Like,
what was the one we literally looked at each other and started laughing? It was in the middle of a boss fight. It would just sound like a like.
there was a couple like Atari-esque sounds in the game, and they weren't like frequent enough to be distracting, but like certain times where if like something you hit a wall wrong or like a certain type of ammunition would hit something and didn't do any damage. I know a specific one is like there's some bosses where the drill charge doesn't do any damage. And they would make this horrible like, and it sounded like Atari. That's a little mean. NES sound effect where it was like just so limited. I was like, that sounds completely out of place. Like they just like clipped it in there. So, but there were a couple of, like decent sound. I don't think there's anything where I'm like, that's a cool ass sound effect. The upgraded blaster did sound pretty cool.
Yeah.
The slide sounds fine, sounds powerful, but I feel the same way I do about the sound effects as I do the soundtrack, where it looked so pretty, I wanted it to sound pretty too, and it just kind of wasn't there for me.
Yeah, for me, you do get your typical like NES crunchy sound effects. Like it sounds good when it's supposed to sound good. If it's supposed to be a deep sound, it sounds good. But even the the CD version of this game, it's got a completely different set of sound effects. Like you can tell this one took a backseat, and they just did not give the sound department the proper care and time and effort that it needed. And it's a shame because, like I said, the Mega Man X1 soundtrack is an all-timer. The sound effects are great. It's a lot of like robotic sounds, a lot of like computer, like early computers people thought computers would sound like. This one just it's kind of a it's like it's not a lot of
by
effort.
the book.
Yeah, it's not a lot of effort.
Yeah. Especially when you compare it to other X games, like you said at first, that first level in X, when like the bridge is collapsing and stuff, and like the flying enemies are coming in, like it sounds crazy. It's like, wow, this is next level. Nah, not so much on this one. I think it was just very standard, not necessarily bad, not necessarily good, which is almost worse sometimes because there's not a whole lot to talk about when it's just kind of meh.
Right.
If it was horrible, we could sit here and laugh about it, but
Yeah, even there's nothing that stands out. There's nothing memorable. It is just it's kind of just a cash in. You could, and again, I don't think it's a detriment of anyone's work. You can only work with the tools that you're given, and they hire you freelance. They don't even give you a credit for the music, and then the sound, is just shipped out to a third party. It's funny. I saw an interview in GamePro with the producer of this game, and he was like, I was pulling teeth because we wanted to end this on this end cap for the trilogy on the SNES, and like knowing that we'd send it out to a third party, they were just gonna, lay an egg, and they kind of did. They collected their check.
graphics team worked overtime though. My God,
for sure, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I don't think this sounds bad. I don't think the gameplay is necessarily bad. I think there's some weird design choices. I think there's a lot of mid going on. It's a weird mix of highs and lows in this game for sure.
Well, we'll save that for our next category, our main bread and butter.
Ooh, new food.
Price and collectability / we'll get there. Price and collectability. So the price and collectability. This is an interesting one because if you know anything about this game, we're going to focus on the Super Nintendo version. That's the one we played. My lord, is it expensive. Very expensive. But there actually is some interesting reasons why it's so expensive. So the North American version and the European version on the SNES are very, very limited because of the time of the release. It was released very much in the end of the Super Nintendo's life cycle, actually like past dead, like the body was cold. Everyone knew the 32-bit systems were coming out, the Saturn and the PlayStation, and we talked about it previously. Even Capcom didn't work on this version. They worked on, the one that they could make the most money off of at the time, the PlayStation and the Saturn. So there wasn't a lot of SKUs released for this game in the first place. It's like the only way you can play this version is on the Super Nintendo, so it's technically an exclusive.
Is it though?
I mean, it's on the PlayStation and the Saturn, but this version is different.
Yeah, but this version's on the collection.
Right. That's the first time it was ever available. It's a funny part too. So for years, the only way you could play the Super Nintendo version is if you had a cartridge. Now it's on the Legacy collection. Even the PS2 era, they had a Mega Man X collection. That was the 32-bit and the 32-bit version of the game. The Windows version was a 32-bit version. So this version was like impossible to track down until 3 years ago?
Well, is that when the collection came out? A couple years ago?
Yeah, something like that.
My question is, 4 years ago, 3 years ago is COVID times, which when the price of everything went up. So I'm curious on if the release of it on another collection affected the price of it overall.
Think, but I'll put it like this. So I had this exact copy of mine in my store, and at that time it was selling for around $1,200 complete in the box.
I do remember that.
Yeah,
that sticker
I had $1,000 on it, and everyone was like, "Fuck, paying $1,000 for a game." I'm like, I get it. Well, it worked out for me because I kept it. But the thing is with this game, like they didn't release a lot of the Super Nintendo copies. They were saving their, allocated money for the 32-bit era. Plus, you have to think this chip that they had to order, because they didn't have as many as they did for Mega Man 2, which is also a pricey game. They actually had to raise the retail price on Mega Man X3 to the highest Super Nintendo game at the time. So, not a lot of people bought it. They didn't ship a lot of them. Supply and demand was very low for this game. Even though give this game a chance at turning a profit, they had to price it higher. They wanted to try to make money off of this thing, and then people kind of weren't falling for it because they knew, hey, there's a CD-based version coming out. Like, why don't I get that? There's a 3DO version coming out. Why wouldn't I get that? But yeah, they canceled that, and then they actually canceled the North American release on CD. So this was desired by people that wanted to, complete the trilogy. This is the only way you could play it in the States for the longest time. There are some caveats between the Saturn version, other than we talked about it, there's animated cutscenes. The Saturn version has borders on the side of the screen. So something to think about if you want to pick up this version over the Saturn version. There is a save feature also. The European PAL version of this game is regarded as a slower version. I mean, I think that has to kind of do with the refresh rate over in Europe. That's a given, right? The Windows 95 version, I don't know if I mentioned it earlier or not, it's the 32-bit version. The only other cartridge version you can play this game. It's an unofficial release because Brazil's going to do their thing with the Mega Drive. There is a bootleg Genesis version of this game, and it is just
Genesis?
Mega Drive.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it is absolutely dog shit and horrible. Like, it is... You want to talk about slowdown and flickering, and there's flickering on Genesis. Let that sink in.
It's probably two guys in a shed that made it.
Yeah.
The Brazil Sega stuff is so fascinating. I'd love to go over it sometime in an episode, but I didn't know that. That's hilarious.
Yeah, but forever, literally until the Legacy collection, this was the only way you can play this version of this game. So I think that's why, Mega Man fans were trying to track this down, collectors were trying to track this down. They actually, I'm sorry, I forgot about the Wii U version. They did release it on Wii U, but obviously you can't get that anymore since they closed that.
It was on the shop. It wasn't a physical.
Yep, it's on the shop. So this is the only physical version of this game you could get. With that being said, did I talk about how much this goes for now?
No.
You're setting it up.
I guess I need to. It's really important for this category. So let's go over the current going rate for this game. The Super Nintendo version, United States release, North America, however you want to word it. Just the cartridge. And mind you, this has dropped about $300 or $400 for the total. $272 for just the cartridge. Complete in-box copy is going to run you around $1,000. Sealed copies around $3,100, $200, whatever. The manual itself, the last sold manual, just the book, $300. The last sold just box, $400. And you're probably thinking, damn, that's crazy. This is a really expensive game. Well, guess what? In a weird turn of events that usually doesn't happen on this show, the PAL version is the absolute insane bonkers banana one. Just the PAL cartridge. And mind you, this is after $300 to $400 of dropping. Just the cartridge. $749 is the last one that's sold. Complete in box version. You ready? $2,989.
Wow.
Plus shipping.
Is the cover art different?
Is that sold?
Yeah.
Oh,
Is the cover art different?
Only just because of the border. Like
okay.
your
What was
typical
the
PAL.
biggest difference between those two games?
The speed, like the refresh rate.
It was slower.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and it
PAL's
had,
always going to be slower.
Yeah. So like an inferior version. But this is interesting
I
too,
wonder
though.
why that one's so much more.
I am
I
too,
wonder if there
especially
was even
after
less.
It's got to be even
there.
less.
When I
Like,
read-
right?
Was there? I'm sorry. Was there a release date difference?
Yeah.
What was the gap?
Let me scroll up.
Because the UK is usually always behind us, and we're behind Japan.
So yeah, our version released January 4th, 96, and their version released May 15th, 96.
90, still the same
Yeah,
year
I think
though.
not
Year,
too far of a
right,
gap. It wasn't like it
I
was.
wonder when they ended production in of the Super in Europe.
Same, but I think I know why, based off of the sales history of this game. So Japan sold the most, obvious reasons. 0.30 million. So we talking what, 300,000?
0.03?
0.30.
300,000?
Yeah.
Yeah, 300,000, right? So it's like, low, right? North America, 0.04 million.
So 40K?
40K
Yeah.
is nothing. Europe, you ready for Europe? 0.01.
Oh,
That's real Rose numbers.
Yeah.
So we're talking 0.35 million, 350,000 worldwide.
It's real Rose numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
so
crazy.
It's extremely scarce.
Yeah.
Wow.
But I mean, that's honestly like it could probably be even less than that because I'm pretty sure
Sure.
those numbers only go down that low.
Yeah.
Like you can't put in a third digit for those.
Right. You can't put in 350. Yeah. Like,
So I'm pretty sure on that because you're using VG charts.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure on that website it only goes into a tenth of a million. So
Yeah.
they can't add a third digit, which would be great if they would. But,
So it's scarce, so it makes me wonder if like it would have been, if we would have had that North American PlayStation release, if it would have helped at all.
I think it would have, like,
But here's the crazy thing: the Saturn PAL version, just the disc is like $250. The Saturn or the PAL PlayStation version is like $100 for just the disc. So it's like
surprising.
it's still expensive, but I think because it's this is the only way you can play this game. Like you're not gonna be able to afford a Nintendo copy.
it's not though. Why is this game so expensive?
That's the thing now. There's readily accessible and easy ways to play this game, and you know what? It's not a horrible port. It did crash on us, sure, but
When it
like,
launched, it had like hella problems. Like it was super laggy bad when it launched. They've patched it since, but when the X collection came out, it was like universally shat on.
Like, what did this game... The only thing I can think of that this game did historically for Mega Man was the first one that you could play as Zero.
yeah.
Is that the reason?
You got fanboys like that.
I mean, if you've played it, no, because if he dies, it's over.
I don't...
you know?
I mean, there is a weird... I don't want to say weird, but Super Nintendo is a really, really popular game or console to collect for.
yeah.
Like, extremely popular. Over some other ones, by far. And I think Mega Man is some of the most expensive on the console.
Yeah, no doubt.
I don't know why, but
People are
I
passionate.
can see there's a larger pool of people trying to fight over Super Nintendo games.
Yes.
Whereas you have like, for example, like what's that Virtual Boy?
Mhm.
There is a infinitesimal smaller number of people wanting to buy Virtual Boy games, and that's why you see the most expensive ones like don't really come close
Right.
to some of these Super Nintendo games, like Hagane.
Yeah.
The game is so expensive.
There's more people hunting for that than
Right.
even it might be rarer. There's more people wanting Mega Man. Like you get a
Right.
pretty big crossover,
Right.
Like,
especially nowadays.
I've seen one copy of Hagane in my life.
Same one.
One. And it was just a cart. And I'm pretty sure the cart was disgusting.
It was gross. Yeah.
Is it the same one?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was gross, dude.
So it's like there's a larger pool of people, so the demand is higher for Super Nintendo. But I'm still just like, damn, man. Like,
Well, also, I think if you want,
Y'all move on.
right? I think it's interesting and something that like I prefer, but we'll get into it about is it worth it, whether I think it's worth it or not. But it's cool to have the same trilogy on the same console, right? If you have X1, X2, and X3 next to each other and they're all on Super Nintendo, like that shit looks awesome. But at what price point does that make it worth it?
I mean,
you know?
is this game shelf porn?
Hey, let's hold that thought for a minute because let's get into it. Is it worth it?
Is this game shelf porn? Is that one of the games?
I literally had it in my notes. This is one of the most shelf porn games I've ever seen.
Because to me, okay, in my opinion, you have crossed the threshold of shelf porn when you are a crazy expensive game and still has a readily available way to play it legally on another system.
Yep.
I think that there is something to be said about this one for the entirety of its lifespan up until its release on the collection.
Mm-hmm.
But
I'm gonna say even then, the PlayStation version's like better.
Well,
this is the only way in North America, correct?
Yeah.
That's what I
so
mean.
this is a different game technically than the 32.
So
Okay,
I'm gonna give it some credit up until it gets to that point where it's available somewhere else. Like it has become shelf porn.
It's
the same as Minish Cap. Minish Cap became shelf porn the second we were able to play it on something else. And now Minish Cap is a little bit different because it's not on a physical media in another sense. So once the Switch Online store shuts down, it's got some merit to it being the only way you could play it. Right. But this one is on a disc, correct?
Mm-hmm.
It's on a disc on
and digital platforms. So like
Xbox. What is it on?
PlayStation 4, Xbox One.
Everything. Switch.
PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and Switch.
Yep.
On physical media.
Yep.
It's shelf porn.
Yep.
It doesn't need to be this much money. I understand it's Mega Man and it's low print and it's cardboard box, but like, I'm sorry.
What's the thing? You brought up Minish Cap. Like that's at least got a Zelda tax. Like, is the Mega Man tax that fucking crazy? Like
Mega Man people, it is.
I guess. My God. Like,
well, like
I mean, I'd have to ask a Mega Man expert or someone who really likes Mega Man.
All the Mega Man games are pretty expensive if you get them complete.
I love Battle Network. Yeah. I am not paying Battle Network prices when the collection exists, and that's why I bought the collection. Yeah. At that point, if I'm buying Battle Network physical in box, like that's just shelf porn.
Let's just do a little funny here for a minute since we're all getting passionate here. Brian,
I'm sorry.
I was with you when you bought this, Brian. How much did you pay for it?
$130.
I think it's definitely worth that just for how rare it is. But unfortunately, we're not talking about $130 even for the cart anymore.
Well, here's something really interesting to me too.
That's
so
just
let's just say
yeah.
That was
well. Also, I spent like $600 back then, and I got this Super Metroid Player's Choice, Super Mario RPG, Super Mario Kart, and what was the other game? Yoshi's Island.
2.
All complete in the box for under $600. So like, whatever. About $100 a pop. Not bad.
Now, was that...
Thank you, Iowa, in the middle of nowhere.
Was that
long ago?
Was that what the store was, the sticker price and the total, or did they cut you a deal on it?
Oh, that was total. Interesting point of this. If you're just dying to have a physical copy of this game...
Can I see that?
Let's get box, yeah.
Thank you.
If you're dying to have a physical copy of this game, the Saturn version complete in box is like $400. The PlayStation version's like $250. So that's cheaper than a cart by itself, complete PlayStation, you're hovering around cart price for US. PAL, like, just keep dreaming. Like, I'm sorry for my European listeners out there, but PAL's tough getting. But, if you really need a physical copy, there's cheaper alternatives for arguably a better version. I know the Saturn version really got panned for this game. I guess there's like slowdown issues, and I guess it's just really ugly and kind of foggy.
It's surprising since 2D and Saturn's like clutch usually.
Well, it depends. Say they're hit or miss. Yeah, it's either like, you get Symphony of the Night or you get something good. But my argument is there is arguably a superior version of this game physically out there for significantly cheaper. Again, I bring up the point where it's like, hey, I think it's really cool to have all of the same series on one console so you can just pull it off the shelf one by one and play them. But at what price point is that worth it, For me, even if you have just a cart, it's like talking $300 carts, man. That's not worth it to me at all. Like, if you're spending that kind of money, like, I would rather just pay more and get a complete in-box copy. But man, this game used to be like $1,200. Like, it's dropped significantly. It's under $1,000 now. It's hovering around $1,000.
Did you see have you opened up this manual that you have?
Only once when I first got it. Why?
Somebody put all the bosses in here and then wrote which weapons that they have once you beat them.
That's pretty cool.
Could have used that.
Piece of history.
Oh, wait, no, it says what weapons you get.
Yeah, but it didn't say what upgrades you get in the level.
No, I think this person wrote what they're weak to.
Let me see.
I think they're wrong.
That would be even better.
But I think they put what weapon they use to beat them.
Oh, that's definitely written, dude. Look at that little kid. AC, capital I, capital D, burst. Yeah, dude, they definitely did. That's funny. Oh, my copy's ruined. No.
Oh yeah, here's my thing. Like, even let's just take Mega Man games. Like, there's better, more beloved Mega Man games that have potential to go up in the future if you're looking at a pure investment. Like, I know this one's very scarce and doesn't have that going for it. This is the most self-porn game I think we've done on this podcast, honestly. And surprising to me because Mega Man is an established franchise that has like 100 sequels, dude. So like it's clearly through the eons. We had Mega Man growing up. We still have Mega Man, you know. It's still really hard to justify that price point. Like, and Mega Man's in a weird place too because I know Capcom's kind of in like a rebirth right now, and they're like rebooting and bringing back, killing on sequels. Mega Man's kind of floating in water because the guy that created it's not there anymore. They haven't.
Oh, you mean Mighty number 9?
Yeah, that worked out great. That worked out about as great as this game did.
Yeah, people really like that.
Mega Man's kind of treading water. Like I know he was in Smash, and like they acknowledge it's not like they're not doing anything with Mega Man, but it's in a weird place in time because it's like, okay, you deviate too far from the classic Mega Man formula, people are gonna like have their pitchforks out unless it's like a spin-off series. You can't really do anything too new or innovative with the classic formula, though. So it's in a weird place where the people who love Mega Man are kind of stuck in the past. There's no room for growth. It kind of affects your market as far as collectability, too. Like I think you're going to have your passionate Mega Man people that are always going to try to huck this down no matter what the price point is. But that's a really small number of people. Like there's a small number of people that are paying this much for a game, let alone a game you can get on a modern platform. That comes with other X games, by the way. It's not just Mega Man X3 on this collection.
It goes up to 8. It's
like,
2 disc.
It's a great
For some reason, they couldn't fit all on 1 disc.
So
my thought with this is I don't necessarily think this is a bad game, but if I'm trying to sit there and rank it amongst, let's just keep it at X, Mega Man X games, this is the worst Mega Man X game. Honestly, truly disappointing for me, especially because I do enjoy Mega Man X. But it just feels like a step back. It feels like I don't want to say a lazy attempt, but it's kind of like, hey, we know we can sell some Mega Man games and they still didn't, you know? It's a weird one for me. Like, this is truthfully probably the most disappointing game I've had on the podcast so far. I'm really kind of shocked that a Mega Man game would be a no for me. And I didn't think this was the game I was going to pick this year that was like, yeah, a resounding no. I thought that was coming later. But for me, this one's no. Again, there's arguably better versions you can get of this game. It's readily available now. I agree 100% with the statement of this being shelf porn. Like literally halfway through our playthrough, I was like, this is just shelf porn, bro. It brings nothing new to the table. Like I said, every time it tries, it takes 2 steps back. Even if you want to sit there and be like, hey, this is a physical copy of the music for this, it's like, this isn't the best version. This isn't the best Mega Man game, gameplay wise. Maybe graphics, it's great for graphics, but then there's X2 that has the same effects. It's significantly cheaper. It's still expensive, but it's cheaper. This is a resounding no for me, honestly. And I'm kind of shocked and saddened to say that. But there's better options, especially if this is like your first Mega Man game. Like, hell no, don't start with this one. Hell no, don't go out and get this one. It is just the truest definition of shelf porn we've ever had. Like, might even start moving up to my number 1 spot. This and Rule Rose and this are awfully similar, I'll put it like that. Even sales numbers, like, yeah, it is rare. And for Rule Rose, I was like, yeah, you got to pay to play it. It hasn't been re-released. This has been re-released on other platforms that are modern, so I can't justifiably say, yeah. And again, you spend your money and your time however you want to do it, but I can't support you in that decision. As someone who owns a copy, like, super grateful I got it for so cheap, whatever, like, it's cool. I'll never have that opportunity with anything else ever again. And both of my most expensive games, like, I got great deals on. Like, guess what? I've been doing this for a long time, man. All right, that was ungodly expensive back then. But I'm happy to have it. But I would never in a million years buy another copy at full price. The resounding no for me, sadly. And it breaks my heart to say that about Mega Man, especially one of my top 3 games.
I don't even think you need to nod to me. I'm pretty sure you know what my answer is going to be on this.
Yeah.
There's no point. There's no. Like, unless you only collect Mega Man, you want a Mega Man shrine, like, Mega Man's your greatest thing ever, you don't buy any other games, and you can afford to save all your money just for this one Mega Man game, or the first edition Mega Man whatever one that's worth tens of thousands of dollars apparently, if that's even true, I don't know. First print Mega Man, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, we
Hang
have
tab, misprint, on the back.
Whatever. It's just shelf porn. It's I don't know. It is super collectible, but
It's a very catered collectible.
yeah, this fits the shelf porn category, and that's not why I buy games. Right. So this has no merit to me in my collection at all, like period. So if you want Mega Man and you want to spend $1,000 on this, like chase your bliss, but there's a lot of better games out there that you could
buy
spend
4 or
some
5
money
better
on.
games.
Clearly, people didn't want it for $1,000. This shit sat in my store for like 5 months at $1,000 back then.
Look, that's because in our area we don't have collectors. We only have flippers.
You're right. Yeah, there's still $200 wiggle room on
that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm not going to be able to add a whole lot. You guys basically said everything. Unless you're going for a complete Super Nintendo collection or a complete Mega Man collection, there's no reason to buy this game. It's actually like one of my strongest no's we've done so far on here. And it's not because the game's horrible. It's just very average.
There's better Mega Man
There's
games.
significantly better Mega Man games. You could buy 4 or 5 quality Mega Man games for the price of this.
I'm going to say this. Mega Man X is the cheapest one of the X trilogy for Super Nintendo, and it's the best one. So, like, go with that.
So, I think it's funny because we went in this year. We need some no's. Like, here's another no.
I mean,
2 this year?
If you want, I guess, like, I can treat this as, like, a key, like, first...
Yeah.
You got first 0 appearance in X and then, like, first 0 playable game. Like, that's really cool if, like, 0 is your character. That's some justification for like having the full series.
Yeah. It's a tough sell. You an attorney?
What do you mean? Is it a tough sell, Brian? How many books do you buy in comics because they're keys? Just because it's your favorite character? Yeah. That's okay. Yeah. Like if 0 was your like favorite all-time favorite video game character, and like you wanted the series that he originated in, like I could see the justification in that. That's the only reason that you bought it, and those are the only games that you own. I don't know.
I'm sorry for you if it is, because
I'm sorry for you, but like I don't know, man.
Yeah,
it's too much money.
I wonder if it's on the CGC slab. First 0.
I'm curious. Actually, I'm about to look it up.
Yeah. But yeah, I think it's like this is definitely a resounding no. Like, I think Barry probably had the same experience I did. About a couple minutes into your playthrough, so this game's how much? So no, I think no, triple no.
I will say if you have to buy a physical copy of this game, like you absolutely must have a physical copy. Go with the PlayStation version. I think it holds up the best. I think the price point is moderate. I think the art's better on the cover. Like, go with the PlayStation version if you have to buy one.
They don't have info blurbs on their CGC labels for games.
I'm going to write in, I want 1% of all your sales, and I'll credit your games. Hire me.
VHS is doing, games don't. That's screwed up.
First playable 0.
Print. In conclusion, that's our second no of the year, right?
Second or third.
Yeah, this is the year of no's, man. It's crazy.
Is it? What do we got?
We had what's the last one he did?
That's all we've had.
And now this. So I think 2. I think
2.
I think 2. Hey, honestly, there's probably more to come.
There will be.
Oh yeah. I'll put it like this. I didn't expect this game that I picked to be my no, all right? I am a little disappointed in this game. It sucks. Especially because it's like, one of my less expensive games.
Brian, if you weren't a set collector, would you sell this game?
I tried to sell it. Now, whatever. I don't have the same motivation
like throw
to
it
sell.
Up online where it's probably going to sell.
I mean,
at a starting bid of $140 for what you bought it, so maximum profit.
Truthfully, after playing it, the thought crossed my mind, and I don't sell shit, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you want everything.
Yeah. But the fact that the thought crossed my mind for most people, that's more,
That's true.
Yeah. I will say, to sound like an asshole, it does look cool on my shelf.
I guess take advantage if you got it.
Yeah.
At your price point, I would buy it for $130.
Yeah.
But
I mean, how can't you? But
like, even if that's how much it was worth, I would buy this game for $100. But I'm not. It's just because it's Mega Man. I kind of like how Mega Man looks. But
that's the thing. Like, I'm pretty casual when it comes to Mega Man games. I enjoy them, but this one I didn't really enjoy, truthfully. It's a 6. If I had to give a numbered IGN too much water rating, I'd say 6. Like, this is just a meh game overall. Yeah, that about wraps it up. I think we drove that point home. It's no. It's a collected no from the bros. What's next in the pipe, Barry?
Next episode, repros, fakes, and knockoffs.
Ooh.
Are they blasphemy or are they not?
Speaking of, this game is heavily counterfeited. What a
Sure.
segue, bro.
Do you have knockoffs in your collections? Find out more, I guess. I don't know.
Funny story about knockoffs in this game. When I had this in the store, there was some local asshole who we all know, I'll say it afterwards, try to tell me that this was a fake copy and that he would give me $800 for it. Like, why are you trying to buy a fake game for $800 if it's fake, bro? Okay.
I forget his name. Toy guy?
You know who. You know who. We all worked with them. Or y'all did.
You didn't.
Yeah, I didn't.
I forget his name all of a sudden because I'm on the spot.
What is his name? He
keep wanting
bought
to
shit from Amazon and then fraud. You know what I'm talking
No,
about?
not him.
What is his name, though?
The guy that was doing porn. I don't remember his name.
He was
Fuck.
doing porn? Like he was acting?
Yeah, no, he's like OnlyFans with this girl.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Him. What was his
him,
name?
yeah.
What was his
Guitar Center
name?
Big guy.
His name is...
Yeah.
That's right.
That's not who
Who
we're
are you
about.
talking about?
He's the one that brought in that War Machine standee in us.
So he liked to really
War
annoy
Machine standee?
His name Dylan was the one like sideswipe you all the time, like steal your shit. He was like annoying as fuck.
Let me pull up.
Always buy everything.
Maybe I have the
No.
mes- maybe I have the
No,
message.
his name was... Dylan was cool. I had 2 Dylans and both of them were badass.
All right,
His
sorry,
name
Dylan.
was...
Yep.
Douchebag.
Fuck him.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, we're gonna have to fire you. So,
Yes, that
for
guy.
the day?
Yes.
No,
like,
dude.
go home. You're done.
Like, you need to go home.
Yeah. That guy.
Like, we're gonna have to let you go. Do you mean like for the day? I'm like, no. For good.
That's fucking funny.
Yeah, he tried to swipe Fire Emblem off my shelf and ripped him a new fucking asshole. He left the disc. I don't know if I've told you this one. It was Fire Emblem for the Wii. It was the last one I needed. He took the disc out and he put the disc in a blank case, printed a new cover for it, like a bullshit, like not a full cover. It was like the title and a shitty picture on it. Put that back in my shelf, and then he took the cover and the manual home. So he gutted my item before I was allowed to purchase it.
Fuck.
Ripped him a new asshole and was like, if you don't bring this back, I will fire you because it's technically theft. And he was like, oh, like freaking out, being like, oh, I said I wanted the game before it came in. I don't care, bring it back or you're done. Is the game worth your job? And he brought it back.
Damn.
And I said, ha, sucker.
That's how we should start doing this. Is this worth your job?
Yep.
Is Mega Man X3 worth your job?
Yeah.
Yeah, fuck him. I gotta use the bathroom before the next
Anyways,
episode.
is your rollout
Oh.
done?
I got distracted.
Join us next time on Collecti-Bros.
That's going to be a fun one. Well, thanks for listening, guys. We appreciate it. Make sure to check us out on Discord. Tell us if you would pay this absurdly high price for this game or not. And we appreciate y'all tuning in. Thank you. Goodbye.